The night was cold and the streets were wet with rain. Neon signs flickered above the cracked sidewalks. People hurried past, umbrellas tilted against the storm, their eyes fixed forward. Nobody noticed the small figure sitting near the edge of the alley. She was not like the others. Her skin had a faint shimmer, almost silver when the light touched it. Her large eyes reflected every color of the neon signs. She looked young. Too young to be alone, but she had been living on these streets for weeks. She was the alien girl, though nobody called her that out loud. Most just looked away. She pulled her thin jacket tighter, shivering as the water dripped from the torn fabric. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she had learned to ignore it. On nights like this, she searched for scraps, maybe a half-eaten meal tossed away behind a cafe. Her fingers, long and delicate, searched the ground as if by instinct. That was when she saw it, something lying on the sidewalk just outside the alley. A small shape, a wallet. For a moment she thought it was trash. People dropped things all the time. But when she crawled forward and picked it up, she knew it was not garbage. The leather was smooth, heavy, and expensive. She opened it carefully. Inside were papers, cards with names she could not read, and stacks of bills. More money than she had ever seen in one place. Her hands trembled as she held it. The rain poured harder, washing over the streets, but the girl stayed still, staring at the wallet. She could run. She could hide. She could use the money to buy food, maybe even find shelter for the first time in months. No one would know. No one would care. But deep in her chest, something felt wrong. Her people, before they were gone, had taught her rules. One of them was clear. Do not take what is not yours. That voice echoed in her memory, soft but firm, like her mother's. She looked up and saw a man across the street. He was tall, his coat soaked, his face lined with worry as he searched the ground with sharp eyes. His hand kept patting his pockets. His steps grew quick, restless. The girl clutched the wallet tighter. It must belong to him. For several long seconds she froze. Her heart raced. She was afraid of adults, especially men. Too many times she had been shoved away, cursed at, or ignored. But this man's face did not show anger. It showed desperation. Something inside her decided. Slowly, nervously, she stepped out from the alley and into the rain. The man noticed her at once. His eyes narrowed at her strange appearance, the silver shimmer of her skin, the odd shape of her eyes. Most people reacted with suspicion or fear when they saw her. He did not move, only watched. The girl lifted the wallet in her small hands and stretched it toward him. The rain dripped from her hair as she whispered, almost too soft to hear. Yours. The man blinked. For a moment he seemed stunned, then he stepped forward. He reached out slowly as if not to scare her and took the wallet. When he opened it and saw everything inside untouched, his mouth fell open in disbelief. You found this? He asked. His voice was deep but gentle. The girl nodded, but she said nothing more. She waited for him to scold her or perhaps turn away like the others. Instead, something unexpected happened. The man knelt down, lowering himself to her level. His coat dripped with water as he looked into her eyes. You could have kept this. You could have taken the money. Why didn't you? The girl hesitated, then answered simply, Not mine. The man studied her in silence, as if weighing her words. Then he did something she never expected. He smiled. Not the cold, polite smile she had seen from others, but a warm smile, real and full of gratitude. You saved me tonight, he said softly. You have no idea. The girl tilted her head, confused. She did not understand how returning a wallet could save anyone. To her, it was just the right thing to do. But in that moment, she noticed something in his eyes. Respect. Appreciation. She was not invisible anymore. The storm raged on, but the alley no longer felt so dark. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the man stood there with the wallet still in his hand. He looked at the alien girl as if she had done something far greater than simply returning lost money. She shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to do next. Usually when she helped someone, they ignored her after. Or worse, told her to leave, but this man did not walk away. He kept kneeling there, the soft smile still on his face. What is your name? He asked. The girl hesitated. Her name was not like human names. When she spoke it aloud, people laughed or frowned. So after a pause, she only said, I have no name. The man's eyes softened. Everyone has a name, he said. If you don't have one, then we'll find one for you. He reached into his wallet, then stopped. For a second, his expression grew serious, almost heavy. He looked down at the stack of bills, then back at the girl. Do you know what this wallet is worth? She nodded. Food. Warmth. Her voice was small but firm. He let out a slow breath. Yes, food, warmth, but much more. He tapped one of the cards inside. This is not just money. This wallet carries power. Without it, I could lose everything. My work, my position, my place among leaders. The girl tilted her head. She didn't fully understand, but she could sense his words were important. You are important? He chuckled, though it was not a happy laugh. Some would say so. I am a diplomat. I speak for my people to others. Every word I say can change lives. His smile faded as his eyes scanned the street around them, as if someone might be listening. He leaned closer and whispered, "And tonight, if I had lost this wallet, a treaty might have been broken. A war could have started." The girl's eyes widened. She looked at the small piece of leather in his hands, now understanding that she had not just returned money, she had returned peace. The man studied her carefully. "Tell me, why are you out here alone?" She lowered her gaze. The words were heavy, but she forced them out. "My people are gone. I had a family, but not anymore. I hide. Humans don't want me." The man's chest tightened. He had seen many things in his career: refugees, war orphans, broken families. But something about this girl cut through his defenses. She was young, vulnerable, yet honest and brave. He stood and held out his hand. "Come with me. You should not be on these streets." The girl looked at his hand but did not take it. Her mind raced with fear. Many humans had promised kindness before, only to push her away later. She shook her head. "No, safer here." The man did not pull back. He waited, his hand steady. "You are safe with me," he said. His voice carried no command, only a quiet promise. At last, her trembling fingers reached forward. She placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, steady, unlike the cold world she had known. He led her away from the alley and onto the main street. As they walked, the girl noticed something unusual. People looked at him with respect, even fear. Cars slowed when he crossed. Guards at the end of the block nodded at him and stepped aside. He was not lying. He truly was someone important. They entered a tall building with shining glass doors. The inside was warm, filled with golden light, and smelled of polished wood and clean air. The girl's eyes widened. She had never been inside a place like this. The man guided her into a quiet room with soft chairs and a fire burning in the corner. He handed her a blanket, and for the first time in months, she felt warmth on her skin. "Eat," he said, placing a tray of food in front of her. The girl stared at it, real food, fresh and steaming. Slowly, carefully, she began to eat, her hands shaking as she tasted each bite. Tears welled in her eyes. The man watched silently. He was not just curious about her. He was thinking. This girl was not ordinary. She had chosen honesty over survival. She had saved him, though she didn't know it. And she was more than human. Something rare, something valuable. He leaned back in his chair, his mind working quickly. If word of her existence spread, she could become a pawn in dangerous games. Governments would fight to control her. Scientists would want to study her. Enemies might want to use her. The diplomat knew one truth. This girl had walked into his life for a reason. She had saved him tonight. Now it was his turn. He looked at her, still eating hungrily by the fire. "You are not just a survivor," he whispered to himself. "You are the key." The girl paused, sensing his gaze. She looked up with wide eyes, a piece of bread still in her hand. "Why do you look at me like that?" she asked. The man smiled faintly. "Because, little one, you just changed the future." The fire burned low in the diplomat's suite, filling the room with soft light. The alien girl sat curled in the blanket, her eyes half closed, her body finally warm after weeks of cold streets. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe, but safety is fragile. Down on the street below, in the drizzle of the late night, two men in black coats leaned against a car. One of them lifted a small device to his ear. It buzzed faintly as he scanned the upper floors of the tall building. The device blinked red. The man smirked. "She's here," he whispered. The other man's eyes narrowed. "The alien?" "Yes, the stray. We've been tracking her for weeks, and now she's with him." They looked at each other. This was no ordinary sighting. If the girl had caught the diplomat's attention, the balance of power could shift. The men stepped back into the shadows, waiting. Inside the warm room, the girl stirred. Her sensitive ears caught sounds others might miss. The faint hum of electronics outside, the distant rumble of voices. She looked toward the window, her eyes sharp and uncertain. The diplomat noticed. "What is it?" She hesitated, then whispered, "We are watched." The man frowned and rose to his feet. He walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and stared into the rain-slick streets. At first he saw nothing. But then, as the headlights of a passing car flashed, he caught sight of two shadows that did not move like normal people. They were waiting, watching. His heart sank. Of course they had followed her. Of course someone would notice. She wasn't safe here, not yet. He turned back to her, his voice low but firm. "You were right. There are eyes on us, and those eyes do not mean you well." The girl clutched the blanket tighter. Fear returned to her face. "They always come," she whispered. "Always chase. Always hide." The diplomat crouched in front of her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me. You gave back my wallet. You saved me from disaster. Now I must save you. But if they find you here, you will not have another chance. We must leave." She stared at him. "Leave? Where?" He stood tall, his face set with decision. "Somewhere they cannot reach you. Somewhere only I can take you." Minutes later, they moved through the back halls of the building. The girl stayed close, her eyes darting nervously in the shadows. The diplomat led her with confident steps, but inside his mind was racing. He was trained to negotiate, not to protect fugitives. Yet something told him this was his duty. They exited through a service door and slipped into the dark streets. The rain masked their movement, but the men in black were not far behind. One of them raised the device again. "They're moving." The diplomat hailed a car, an unmarked government vehicle waiting nearby. The driver, a trusted aide, opened the door with a questioning look. "Sir?" "No questions," the diplomat ordered. "Drive." The car sped away, leaving the watchers cursing in the storm. But the chase had begun. As the city lights faded behind them, the girl looked out the window. Her voice was small. "They will not stop. They will follow until I am caught." The diplomat shook his head. "Then we make sure they never catch you." She turned to him, eyes wide. Why help me?" "Humans fear me. They do not want me." He looked at her for a long moment. His voice, when it came, was heavy with truth. "Because you are more human than most humans I know. You did not steal, even when you were starving. You chose honesty when no one was watching. That makes you worth protecting." Her lips trembled. She had never been told such words before. She turned her face toward the window, hiding the tear that slipped down her cheek. But even as hope flickered in her chest, danger closed in. Far behind them, the men in black were not alone anymore. Their car had been joined by others. These were not just hunters, they were agents of something larger. A powerful group working from the shadows, determined to control what they did not understand. "The diplomat has her," one man said into his communicator. "We cannot let this spread. If she becomes a symbol, everything changes." The reply crackled through the speaker. "Do what must be done." "Retrieve the girl." "Silence him if you must." The men exchanged grim looks. The chase was no longer about the alien girl alone. It was about power, politics, and secrets. And the diplomat, who had once carried only treaties in his hands, now carried a life that could alter history. The car wound through dark streets until it reached a hidden compound on the edge of the city. Tall gates opened silently and the vehicle slipped inside. Soldiers at the perimeter saluted the diplomat. The girl looked around with wide eyes. "Safe?" she asked softly. He nodded. "For now." But deep in his chest he knew the truth. Safety would not last. By choosing to protect her, he had placed himself on a path that could not be undone. Somewhere out there, enemies were already moving. And soon the whole world would know about the alien girl who had lived on the streets, an innocent who might become the key to peace or the spark of war. The compound was quiet, the heavy steel gates shut behind them. Guards patrolled with rifles, their boots clicking against the wet ground. The alien girl clutched the blanket tighter around her shoulders, her wide eyes scanning the unfamiliar place. For the first time, walls surrounded her instead of alleys. She wanted to feel safe, but deep inside, fear still coiled tight. The diplomat led her down a narrow hall into a secure chamber. "You'll rest here," he said gently. "No one can reach you." The girl sat on the edge of the cot, silent. Her gaze lingered on the man as though measuring his words. For weeks she had learned not to trust promises. But his eyes held no lies. He placed a hand over his chest. "You saved me once already. Tonight I promise I'll save you." She lowered her eyes and whispered, "They will come." The diplomat nodded grimly. "Yes. And when they do, we'll be ready." Hours later, the storm passed, leaving the night clear and cold. The compound seemed calm, but danger often hides in calmness. In the distance, black vehicles rolled silently toward the gates. Their headlights were dark, their engines low. Men in black armor stepped out, moving with the precision of hunters. They carried advanced weapons designed not for ordinary enemies, but for something other. The leader raised his hand. "Remember your orders," he said. "The girl is priority. The diplomat is expendable." The team spread out, approaching the compound like wolves circling prey. Inside, the girl woke suddenly. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, reflecting light that wasn't there. She heard it, the subtle vibration of engines, the crunch of boots on gravel. Her senses were sharper than any humans tuned to danger. She slipped from the cot and shook the diplomat's shoulder. "They are here." He stirred, blinking, then stiffened. The alarm had not yet sounded, but he trusted her without question. He grabbed his communicator. "Security, prepare for breach." Almost as he spoke, the first explosion shook the walls. The lights flickered, alarms blared, and shouts echoed through the compound. The diplomat pulled the girl close. "Stay behind me." But the girl stepped forward. Something changed in her posture. Fear was still in her eyes, but beneath it was a strange calm, as if she had always known this moment would come. The doors burst open. Armed men stormed inside, weapons raised. The guards fired back, but the attackers were skilled, moving with brutal precision. The diplomat tried to shield her, but before the bullets could reach them, something extraordinary happened. The air shimmered around the girl. A faint glow spread from her body, forming a thin, translucent barrier. Bullets struck the barrier and fell harmlessly to the ground with metallic clinks. The attackers froze in shock. The diplomat's eyes widened. He had expected her to be unusual, but not this. The girl stood taller, the blanket falling away, her silver-tinged skin glowing brighter. She lifted her hand. Energy crackled faintly at her fingertips, a light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The attackers hesitated. "She's active. Take her now," their leader shouted. But before they could advance, the girl released a pulse of light. It surged outward like a wave, throwing the men back across the room. Their weapons clattered to the floor. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The guards stared. The diplomat stared, and the girl trembled. She looked down at her glowing hands as though they belonged to someone else. I didn't mean to," she whispered, her voice shaking. The diplomat stepped forward, his hand steady. "You saved us." Her eyes lifted to his. "But they will fear me more now." He shook his head firmly. "Let them fear. What matters is that I don't, and I will make sure the right people see you not as a weapon but as a miracle." The battle outside still raged. Explosions rocked the compound as reinforcements arrived. The diplomat knew they couldn't stay. The girl's power was no longer a secret. The attackers would report everything. Soon governments, armies, and corporations would all want her. He turned to his aide. "Get a secure transport ready." "We leave immediately." The aide nodded and ran. The girl wrapped her arms around herself, her glow fading. "I never wanted this. I only wanted to survive." The diplomat crouched beside her. His voice was calm, steady. "Survival brought you here, but fate wants more from you. You are not just surviving anymore, you are changing everything." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She wanted to deny it, but deep inside she knew it was true. Minutes later, they slipped through a secret exit, the diplomat's guards covering their retreat. Behind them, the compound burned under the assault. Ahead, only uncertainty waited. As their vehicle sped into the night, the diplomat looked at the girl who sat silent, her eyes fixed on her glowing hands. He could see the storm in her, fear of being hunted, guilt for her power, and something else, strength. He whispered to himself, "The world will not be ready for you." Then louder so she could hear, he added, "But I will be." The girl finally turned to him, her voice soft but clear. "Then I will stay. If you keep your promise, I will," he said without hesitation. The night swallowed them, but in that darkness a new light had awakened, one that could not be hidden for long. The black smoke of the compound still curled into the sky when the world began to whisper. Reports moved faster than fire. Secret transmissions leaked. A strange figure, a glowing girl, had unleashed power unlike anything seen before. Some dismissed it as rumor, Others believed at once. And in the halls of power across the globe, men and women leaned forward hungry for control. In one shadowy office, a general slammed his fist against the table. A child with that much energy could power armies. If she falls into his hands, we lose everything. In another tower of glass and steel, a corporate magnate smiled coldly. Imagine the prophet. A living weapon disguised as a girl. Find her. Bring her to me. And in yet another chamber filled with diplomats and advisors, a voice warned, she is not a weapon. She is a symbol. If the public sees her, they will rally. They will demand peace. That is more dangerous than any war. The alien girl did not know it yet, but she was no longer invisible. She was the most wanted being on Earth. Meanwhile, in the back of a moving convoy, she sat in silence, her hands hidden under the blanket. The glow was gone, but she felt it inside her, waiting. She hated it. The power had burst out without control. She remembered the fear on the soldiers' faces. They would never see her as a child now, only as something dangerous. The diplomat sat across from her, his brow furrowed. His communicator buzzed constantly, messages demanding explanations, threats disguised as questions. He silenced them all. His eyes stayed fixed on the girl. At last she spoke. They will come again. Yes, he admitted. Not just soldiers this time, nations, corporations, even allies. Her voice dropped. Then I should run away. No, he said firmly. Running is what they expect. Hiding is what they want. But if you disappear, they will control the story. They will call you a monster, a threat. And then, his voice trailed off. Then what? She asked. He leaned forward, his eyes steady. Then the world will hunt you without mercy. She lowered her head. I never asked for this, he nodded. Neither did I, but fate doesn't ask. It only gives us choices. Hours later, the convoy reached a hidden safe house deep in the countryside. It was small, simple, far from the noise of the city. The girl stepped inside, looking around the plain room with a fireplace and narrow windows. For a moment, she almost felt like she had returned to the quiet life she once knew. Before the streets, before the fear. The diplomat placed a secure call. His voice was calm, but inside he was wrestling with impossible decisions. If he revealed her to the world, she might be destroyed. If he kept her secret, he risked his career, perhaps even his life. But one truth guided him. She was worth protecting. That night, as the girl slept curled by the fire, the diplomat sat awake, staring at the flames. His aide entered quietly. Sir, forgive me, but this is madness. The whole world is already whispering. If you keep her hidden, you will be accused of treason. If you reveal her, she will be taken. What is your plan? The diplomat's jaw tightened. My plan is to give her a voice. They see her as a weapon or as a prize. But I see her as a person, and the world must see her that way too. The aide hesitated. You mean to show her publicly? Yes, the diplomat said. But on my terms, not theirs. If she is seen as human, not a tool, no one can cage her without protest. The aide looked doubtful. It is risky. They will try to silence you both. The diplomat's eyes flicked toward the girl, still asleep. Then they will learn I am not so easy to silence. But even as he spoke, danger was moving closer. Far away, satellites tracked unusual energy signatures from the girl's outburst. Surveillance drones swept through skies. Intelligence agencies pieced together her image, grainy but unmistakable. Her location narrowed by the hour. In a dimly lit war room, a commander pointed to a glowing dot on the screen. She's here. Secure her at once. Back at the safe house, the girl woke in the middle of the night. She sat upright, her chest tight. Something pressed against her senses. Machines in the air, signals in the wind. She shook the diplomat awake. They are coming again. He did not question her. He rose at once, grabbing his coat. Then we move faster than them. The girl's eyes filled with worry. Where will we go? Where can we hide? The diplomat placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We won't hide. She blinked, startled. He smiled faintly, though his eyes were hard. We will stand in the open, and we will make them listen. The girl stared at him, uncertain, but something in his voice gave her strength. For the first time, she believed maybe they could do more than run. Maybe they could fight, not with weapons, but with truth. Outside, the wind howled. The hunt was closing in, but a new path was opening, one that would put them before the entire world. The sun rose over the countryside, but the safe house felt like a cage. The girl sat by the window, watching the light creep over the hills. She had lived in shadows for so long that the warmth felt almost strange. Yet she knew the shadows were still hunting her. The diplomat stood behind her, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke in low tones, careful and deliberate. Yes, tomorrow. The summit is already scheduled. I will speak and she will stand beside me. No more hiding. The voice on the other end protested sharply, but the diplomat ended the call without reply. His hand trembled slightly as he lowered the phone. The weight of his choice pressed heavy on him. This was no longer only about treaties or politics, it was about humanity itself. The girl turned to him. Why risk so much? She asked softly. He met her eyes. Because you deserve to be seen. Not hunted, not feared, seen. Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him. But the memory of soldiers firing at her, of people recoiling from her strange skin, clung tight. What if they hate me? The diplomat knelt beside her chair. Then they will hate me too. But some will not. Some will hear your truth, and that will be enough. The next day, the capital city roared with noise. Leaders from across the world gathered in a massive glass hall, banners of nations hanging from the ceiling. Cameras lined the walls, broadcasting every word, every movement to millions of screens around the globe. The summit had been planned for trade agreements, but whispers had spread. Something else was coming, something that had already shaken the shadows of power. When the diplomat stepped onto the stage, the room quieted. He was known for calm speeches, for careful balance, but today his eyes burned with a fire none had seen before. Honored delegates, he began, his voice steady. Today was meant for politics, for papers and signatures, but something greater is at stake. I stand before you not only as a diplomat, but as a witness to truth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The cameras zoomed closer. He continued. For too long we have lived in fear of differences. We see what is not like us and we reach for chains or for guns. But yesterday, I met someone who reminded me what it means to be honest even when no one is watching. She is not a threat. She is not a weapon. She is a child who has suffered because we refused to see her humanity. The hall buzzed louder. Some faces leaned forward, curious. Others scowled, already forming arguments. The diplomat's voice rose. Today I will not hide her in shadows. Today she will speak for herself. He turned toward the curtain at the side of the stage. A hush fell across the hall. The girl stepped out slowly, wrapped in a simple dress he had found for her. The lights glinted off her faintly silver skin, her eyes wide with nerves. Gasps filled the room. Cameras flashed. Some delegates whispered in shock. Others stiffened in anger. The girl froze, her body trembling. Every eye in the world was on her. She wanted to run, to vanish back into alleys and darkness. But the diplomat's hand rested gently on her shoulder, steady and firm. She took a deep breath. Then another, and finally she spoke. My name. She hesitated, then chose the words carefully. My name does not matter. What matters is, I am not what you fear. Her voice was small, but the microphones carried it clear. The hall grew silent again. I had nothing, she continued. No food, no home, no friends. People looked away because I was different. They called me monster, but I did not take what was not mine. I did not harm those who harmed me. I only wanted to live. Her hands shook, but she lifted them anyway, palms open. Last night, men came to take me. They fired their weapons. I did not wish to fight. My power, it came without asking, but I did not kill them. I only stopped them. Because I am not a weapon, I am a child. The room buzzed louder. Some nodded. Some whispered. But her words echoed through the hall, through the cameras, into millions of homes. She swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. Please, and see me as I am. Not as a thing to control, not as a danger, but as someone who only wishes to belong. Silence stretched. It was heavy, fragile. Then a few hands began to clap. Soft at first, uncertain, then louder, spreading through the hall. Delegates stood, applauding. Cameras swung to capture the moment, but not all applauded. In the shadows of the hall, figures scowled, whispering into hidden microphones. This is dangerous. If the people rally to her, we lose control. Remove her before it's too late. The girl heard the applause, saw the hands raised for her, and for the first time, hope sparked in her chest. She turned to the diplomat, her voice a whisper only he could hear. They listened. He nodded, pride in his eyes. Yes. And now the world will never forget you. But deep down he knew this was only the beginning. For every cheer there would be a threat. For every hand that reached to welcome her, Another would reach to take her. The game had grown larger than either of them could imagine, and in the shadows beyond the lights, enemies were already moving. The applause in the great hall still echoed when the first shot rang out. The sound cracked across the chamber like thunder. Gasps filled the air as guards scrambled, shouting. The alien girl froze, her wide eyes darting toward the balcony. A figure in black armor stood there, weapon raised. The diplomat reacted first. He pulled her behind him, shielding her with his body. More shots fired, but security swarmed, tackling the attacker to the ground. The hall erupted into chaos. Delegates shouting, cameras flashing, guards dragging the assassin away. But the damage was done. Fear rippled through the crowd. Many stared at the girl, whispering accusations. She drew this on us. She brought danger. The girl clutched the diplomat's coat, trembling. It's my fault, she whispered. If I wasn't here, no one would... He gripped her shoulders firmly. No, this is not your fault. It is theirs, those who fear what they cannot control. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. He knew this was the turning point. If the world saw her as danger, she would never escape chains. If they saw her as hope, she might change everything. He turned to her. You must show them again who you are. Not with fear, with courage. She looked at him, tears streaking her silver-tinged cheeks. But I'm afraid. He smiled faintly. So am I. That is why we stand. Slowly, trembling, the girl stepped forward again. The hall grew silent, all eyes fixed on her. Smoke still lingered in the air, but she raised her voice, steady despite her fear. You see this? She gestured to the chaos, the broken balcony rail, the fallen weapon. This is what fear brings. Fear of me, fear of what I am. But I am not your enemy. I am only a child. She took a deep breath. Her glow flickered faintly, visible even under the bright lights. Yes, I have power. But power does not make me evil. It is choice that matters. And I choose not to harm. I choose honesty. I choose peace. Her voice broke, but she pressed on. I have lived in the cold and the dark with no name and no home. And still, I did not take what was not mine. If I can choose hope when I had nothing, then so can you. The hall was still. No one moved. Then slowly one delegate stood. Then another. Applause began again, louder, stronger, rolling through the chamber like a wave. But not everyone clapped. In the shadows of the hall, men in black earpieces moved. They had not failed yet, not in their minds. Orders whispered through hidden channels. If she becomes a symbol, we lose control. Remove her now, the girl sensed it. Her sharp hearing caught the faint clicks of weapons being readied. She turned to the diplomat, eyes wide. They will try again, he nodded grimly. Then we make a stand they cannot silence. The guards loyal to him closed ranks around them. The hostile agents pushed forward, but they were outnumbered by cameras, microphones, and millions of watching eyes. The girl stepped into the center of the stage, raising her glowing hands. If you mean to take me, then know this, I will not fight you. I will not destroy you, but the world is watching, and they will see who you are. They will see the truth, the agents froze. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, one lowered his weapon. Then another. The order to capture her crumbled under the weight of the cameras, the applause, the undeniable human courage of a child refusing violence. The hall thundered with cheers. Later, when the summit ended, the diplomat and the girl sat together in a quiet chamber. She leaned against him, exhausted. Did I do enough? She asked softly. He looked at her with pride. You did more than enough. You showed them who you are, and you reminded them who they should be. She closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt not invisible, not hunted, but seen. The diplomat gazed out the window at the city below, where screens already replayed her speech, her face shining across the world. He knew dangers remained. Governments would scheme. Corporations would plot. But the tide had turned. The people had seen her not as a monster, but as a child, and that could never be undone. He whispered to himself, She is the future. The girl stirred and looked up at him, a faint smile on her lips. Then, maybe the future is not so lonely. For the first time, the diplomat smiled back with hope. And outside, beyond the glass, the dawn broke, a new light spilling across a world forever changed by a homeless alien girl who chose honesty over survival, and a man who chose to believe in her.